Hi, I'm just going to go over something that my ego likes to say I discovered it, but every good and perfect gift comes from above, so God gave it to me, God showed it to me, and God set me on the path, and got me to where I'm at. Anyway, we'll just start off by saying all of our existence is in some form of copy of nature. It's like airplanes, birds, fish, boats, submarines. There's nothing new under the sun. Well, if you look at our computers, electronics, they work on a system called binary. It's a series of two numbers, ones and zeros. In case you don't know what binary looks like, that's binary. That doesn't say anything specific. I'm just showing you it's a series of ones and zeros. You can research more about how binary works if that's something you're interested in. Which I find this interesting. Binary itself, to make sense, must be divisible by 8. The number of infinity. Alright, so, a binary is two numbers, a dichotomy. Some and none. So, in order to set this system in play, I'm going to list the things that God says He is. First off, He says He is I am. He says He is light. He says He is heat. He says He is hope. He came down as a man. We could start with there. I'm sure there's many other things, but this will get us rolling. Anyway, I am. Let's start with that. That is the concept of existence, or to exist. So what we're going to do is we're going to put all the things that are the opposites of these over here. So the opposite of I am is am not. To not exist. To be a void. To be out of. The opposite of light darkness. The opposite of heat cold. Oh, let's add love here. That's a big one. The opposite of hope is despair. The opposite of man, is woman. The opposite of love, it is not hate. It is not hate. The opposite of love is fear. I'm going to show you how all of these things do not exist. You're going to think I'm going to have a trouble here, and I can see how you'd have a problem with that. Just wait. Clearly I am not. This sets the tone. Now the opposite of light is darkness. And darkness is not a thing. Darkness is no light. You cannot measure how dark something is. You can only measure how much light is or is not there. Cold and heat. Cold is not a thing. Cold is no heat. Hope, the opposite of, is despair. Despair is no hope. Now this is where we switch it off into where it's sort of like an out of. Light is out of darkness. Heat
or darkness is out of light. Cold is out of heat. Despair is out of hope. And woman,
this is the rib. This is why the rib came out of Adam.
Woman is out of man. And fear is out of love.
No love. And I'm going to show you how fear is literally nothing. This might change your perception of what fear is. Every person that's ever been afraid, every human that's ever walked the planet, that's ever walked this plane, has experienced fear. And in that moment of fear, we've all been afraid of the exact same thing. In those moments of fear, there is something we do not know. There is no knowledge. There is no trust. There is no confidence. There's nothing. It's literally nothing. Which is why when you look at how the devil, Satan, tempts people, Eve, Adam, Jesus, when he tempts people and he's seen tempting people, he asks them questions. He failed miserably with Jesus because he knew the answers. But he asks human these questions that we do not know the answers to, and in that moment makes us not know, gives us fear. So, we're going to put this as a 1. These are all 1, and this is 0. This is light and out of light. This is heat, and this is out of heat. This is hope and out of hope. This is man and out of man. This is love and out of love. Now, this is the cool part. Everywhere that life is given, and this is the meaning of life, which I don't know how I had such... why it took me so long to figure out the meaning of life, the unanswerable question, when all I had to do is look at the life of Jesus. And what was the purpose of his life? If he was slain before the foundations of the world, that is his meaning. Sacrifice. Obviously. Everywhere life is given, in our dimension, a 1 goes to a 0 and gives of itself.
God will always come to us.
Always.
Light will always go to darkness.
These are, you can look these up scientifically.
Heat will always go to cold. Hope will always go to despair.
Man, I'm a dude. I know this. I spent a good portion of my life chasing women. To my own detriment. But it is a fact. Women know it. Men know it.
Men will always go to women. Love will always go to fear. Now,
everywhere life is given, a 1 goes to a 0 and gives of itself. And we're going to list the ones that, a few, to show you a pattern.
we'll say
The first ray of light, the beam, the 1, goes to the circle of the earth
and
gives of itself into heat,
which gives life. So that's light, the circle of the earth, that's life. So 1,
going to a 0 and giving of itself.
Jesus.
So 1, he's a man and God. 2 forms of 1s.
He's a man and he's God.
He's 2 of them.
Comes to us.
Because humans came out of him.
That's the same. The cool, interesting part is
This is why God calls the church his bride. in a sense, humankind is feminine, in a sense. That's why we call our trucks her. It's like, we're all hers, in a way.
So basically, Jesus came to earth
And to humans,
the zeros,
and gave of himself. Sex. That is a 1 going to a 0 and giving of itself. A seed in the circle of the earth shoots a root, a 1 going to the 0, giving of itself. It's a pattern. And this is one of the coolest parts to me. This proves, for someone that says, hey, why should I believe that Jesus is the only way? There's lots of other religions that make sense because they deal with love. Why do I need to believe that? That's just what your religion says.
you can see it in nature. A 1 always goes to a 0 and it gives of itself.
It's the meaning of life is sacrifice.
Now this is the cool part. Jesus is a 1.
And he sacrificed himself. I love this. He could have died anyway. He could have died any way possible. He didn't arbitrarily choose to be hung on a cross. Everything here in our dimension is a symbolism. Our spirits are real because they're eternal. Our bodies are real only because they are vehicles for our spirits for this dimension, which makes our spirit more real, which makes this world we live in sort of a construct or a proving ground for our spirit.
Now,
what did he die on? A cross?
which is a 1,
Sacrificing itself, crossing of it out,
to go to the 0.
that we may have life. It's like a receipt. It's a receipt. And you can find the story of salvation in the stars. You can find it everywhere. He made sure we knew.
But I just found this very interesting. And
I was always taught that we're supposed to fear God. Fear God. But in the futility of our English language, in which I can use the word love in the sense that I love chocolate milk, namely Ovaltine, and I love my son Jackson. Those are two very, very different loves, yet they have the same puny word.
the same thing happens with this.
Fear. There's 2 types of fear. There's the one that the devil gives, that is part of living on this construct, the reason we cannot see God physically. There is the fear of not knowing.
And if you're afraid of something you don't know, that is fear.
Or if I have to change the word,
I will say terror.
now, if I am afraid of something that I do know, this is no longer fear or terror. This now becomes
Respect.
and I can prove this in a simple term. If, as a child, this was not the case, my father was a good man. Say a child, I don't want you to get the wrong impression of my dad. If as a child's father comes home drunk many nights, and this child does not know when his dad is going to come home and whoop him and beat him for no reason, just because he's angry at himself. That kid will grow up afraid of his dad and with inside scarring and issues that he needs to deal with. However, if a kid grows up where if he does something wrong and his father will make sure he knows he's not allowed to do that, spankings, whoop him, ground him, whatever, that child will grow up to be respectful and with better qualities. I respected my father. I was not afraid of him. This is the difference. We are to respect God in a fearful way, a respect, not a terror. God says there is no fear in love. Perfect love casts out fear. He clearly defines these as opposites. And this right here, when you start to see, like, this changed my whole... I used to be misogynistic, as raised up in the sort of sense where it was like, the dad rules the house, the mom submits, and she better do what he says, he gets the last say. Which, in some weird misogynistic sense, in a half-truth way, is true. But it's missing this part, the balance. When we examine how God says for husbands to love their wives, he says, husbands, love your wives as Christ loved the church. Now, it took me a long time, and I know a lot of old-time guys who are a lot less stubborn and more humble than me have tried to tell me over the years. Women are the boss, not because they were born the boss, because they're given it by the man. Basically, in the same sense that women are the boss, since this right here is humans. We are the bride of Christ. Now, in that sense, we have to examine how did God make his bride the boss? The thing called free will. And without this balance, there is none. There is no free will. God made this world about us, for him. In that action. God made us the boss, his bride, and said, here's free will. You can do whatever you want. Literally do whatever you want. However, there are principles on which this balance is built that you may want to give that power back to me, that I may give it back to you in the form of a real power. And this, in the same sense, is how women are the boss. The man is to make his world about her. It's about her. I mean, ultimately God stays in the picture for the entire thing. But on a physical sense, his physical world is about his wife. It is to make her better. And she takes that same power that he gave her and gives it right back to him. So he has power, gives it to his wife, she gives it back to him, he gives it back to her, and now we have something that we wear on our fingers to symbolize marriage. It is a ring, a cycle. And this is the same thing that happens with God. He wants us. He wants to be with us. He wants to be married to us, to be joined, to be one flesh. And this is why God says a man will leave his father and mother and cleave to his wife. And they two shall become one flesh. Because one plus 0 is still 1. And you say, well, you didn't do anything. Yes, because an equation happened. And in the action of this equation comes the joining of 2. And I always wondered growing up, like, why did God make the devil? Why did he make the devil? If he knew the devil would fall, and he knew the devil's pride would consume him before he made him, yet he made him anyway, then he didn't make him fall, he made him to fall. Why? And you realize, I did at least later, that there's a verse that really sums up a lot of the Bible and a lot of knowledge. And it's seek and ye shall find. It's very simple. The devil's purpose is to try to hide God as much as he can. You cannot do it all the way, but hide it to a point where it is a perfect balance, and man's choice lies right on the balance of good and evil. And as a man thinketh in his heart, so is he. He can choose to seek good, or he can choose to seek evil. And this is a cool part. A lot of people say money is the root of all evil. I see it all over the Facebook and the internet. It boggles my mind. People don't actually pay attention to the verse. If we look at what the meaning of life is, which is clearly sacrifice, then the root of all evil is going to be the opposite of that. The Bible says the love of money is the root of all evil, and to say that literally would mean that coin collectors, because they think the money is cool and they love the money, are going to go to hell, or they're evil. This is not true. The money is just a tell. Money tells what you actually love, because time is money, and you spend your time on what you love. So the Bible says the love of money is the root of all evil. What is that love? That love is greed. If I want to gain money so that I can help others, that money is not for me. It's for others. I love others. If I want to gain money so that I can have it for me, that is greed. So, in a different sense of saying, greed is the root of all evil, which when compared to sacrifice, giving, is the meaning of life. Love, and I'll show you how love is sacrifice. There's only 2 kinds of loves. Like real, existent love. There's 2 levels of it. There's giving, not expecting anything back. That is the bottom, that's the base model. No power windows on this one. This is giving without expecting anything back. Once you expect something back, it becomes a trade. And there is no love anymore. It is a deal or business. To sell love is prostitution. That's kind of what it is. So, there's 2 levels. Giving without expecting anything back. And then the second one, the greatest one, giving knowing you won't get anything back. And that is why God says, greater love hath no man than this, that a man lay down his life for his friends. And he chose the words lay down his life very specifically because if it gets taken from you, that's not love. You have to give it. And when you look at Jesus, if he's God, you can't kill him. We can't kill God. God could have called a host of angels down and got him off the cross. He could have. He laid down his life for us. He chose to die. And then a lot of people wonder how I including me growing up, how believing in Jesus dying and coming again could make you saved. I always thought it was just like you get a new man. I thought it was just an arbitrary phrase. And after going through months and months of like this whole concept of everything God, where I started, that was the first seed that was in my head. And for 3 months, I make a lot of jokes. I make lots of jokes. I didn't make jokes. I didn't listen to my radio. I spent a lot of time laughing and crying at the same time, which is right now, as of this point in my life, my favorite emotion. Inside us all, there is a divine spark, or I'll explain it this way. Our souls are eternal, infinite. The only place something infinite can come from is something else infinite. So, and if you can divide infinite an infinite amount of times, God basically took parts of his own self and gave it to us. That's you, that's you, that's you, that's you, which he took a part of Adam and made Eve, his bride. And then said, hey, please bring that back to me, because I need it. I don't want you to take that to a place I don't know about. Hell or the void. And so, in that sense, the verse, he came to seek and save that which was lost, is worth 2 levels. One for God and one for us. On our level, he came to seek and save that which was lost. Us. Because Jesus is the way, the truth, and the light. A lamp unto our feet and a light unto our path. He is the way. We are lost without him. Now, if we flip it from God's perspective, he came to seek and save that which was lost. The part he sacrificed to give to us. Which is cool. And when you look at the verse that really, it's a verse that stood out in my whole life. And because I like knowledge, I like knowing things, I don't know, a lot of times I study the wrong things just because I think I'm onto something and I'm like, ah. Anyway, it's the fear of the Lord is the beginning of knowledge. Which, in the original context of the language it was written, it means the knowledge. The fear of the Lord is the beginning of the knowledge. Which I find interesting, because the fear, 1, of the Lord, or the fear, 0, of the Lord, 1, is the beginning of the knowledge. And God is multidimensional, obviously. And the more I read the Bible, I see that the things he says are multidimensional. They mean many different things, and they're all true. Just the same way that I just explained with that last verse. That's seek and save that which was lost. How it means 2 different things, and they're both true. And as a person who loves writing, and I used to read the dictionary thesaurus for fun, like it's like I like to consider myself a wordsmith, but once I realized how God talked, I'm like, you're not very good, Tony. So, anyway, that's the beginning of the knowledge, right here. The fear of the Lord is the beginning of knowledge. Which, in our perspective, we got this. And if fear is not knowing, and God has in all points been tempted the way we are, when we take the part of him that used to belong to him, that he gave to us, to a place he cannot go, where sin is, hell, he cannot know about it. Which is why, when Jesus was there, God turned his back on him. It's the first time he had experienced that. So, there in that moment, that is a fear of God's. The fear of the Lord is the beginning of knowledge. Now, we'll go back to what I was talking about with how salvation works. We have that part of us that is given to us by God, our spirit. That's yours. Take care of it. Please give it back to me. Please join it back to me. In the same way real marriages work. Now, as soon as we sin, the part inside of us, the first time we sin, like willingly sin, which is to take when we should give, when we know to give, to him that knoweth to do good and doeth it not, to him it is sin. Sin is personal. In that moment, that perfect spirit that was given to us dies immediately. Because it cannot have anything to do with sin. And in the moment, everything in this world is based on belief. And that's the only thing Disney has right, is that believe. That's the only thing. Other than that, when God says, if you have the faith of the grain of mustard seed, and you say to a mountain, move, it'll move. That's literal. That is literal. However, I don't have the faith for that. Can I get it? Yeah. Peter walked on the water. And until he looked at the waves and began doubt, he sank. If me and you stood in front of a mountain, and we both said, move, and it moved, we would fall down in disbelief and amazement. And that's why it won't move. However, if me and you stood in front of a mountain and said, mountain, move, and it did not move, and we would fall down in amazement like, what? That is when that mountain would have moved. It's faith. Everything here is based on belief. And knowing that now, when you know that Jesus is God, and the Bible says that we will be a part of Jesus the way Jesus is a part of God. So they're all interconnected. So when our spirit dies for our sin, and when you believe with faith, not trust, this is where I spent my life, trusting that Jesus was the way. And then I'm going to show you the difference between trust and faith. And this is why faith without works is dead. I can trust a chair will hold me. Faith is sitting in it. Faith is the action of it. Faith is the substance of things hoped for, the evidence of things not seen. It is the motion, which is cool. All of these are movement. All of these are movement, and all of these are lack of movement. Which is, and don't get mad at me, women. I'm not referring to this literally in a woman's sense. Anything that applies to a woman applies to a man in relationship to God. Always. I'm going to get to that in a minute. But I'm just going to wrap up this salvation thing. That once your spirit dies from the sin, and you believe that Jesus was God, and you know it, was raised from the dead, that same spirit in you is quickened and comes back alive, and you literally get a new man. And I always thought that was an arbitrary phrase. And I remember, which is not long ago, maybe 8 or 9 months, I thought I would save my whole life. Never experienced the new man thing. But once I knew, and I had proof, like a stupid doubting Thomas me, and I gotta have my proof, I knew it. I saw it in nature. I saw it everywhere. I knew it. I got a new man. I could literally look back on the old me, third person perspective, and just see me wandering and consuming. Consume, rah, 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 rah. And it's mortifying. It really is. But yeah, it's wasted so many years. If you're young, don't do that. Don't do that. Anyway, I was supposed to say something else. I'm writing a book for this, and this is a really, once you think of it, it just kind of goes, poof, and it's hard to keep a mental lineation through it. So I started writing a book, and then I realized I don't think there's time for that. I think that's the slowest way of expediting it out to people. I don't think that's the best idea. So I'm just making this like haphazard video. Hopefully you understand it. But and to close up, I spent most of my life as kind of like chasing women, as I said, and misogynistic, and it would perturb me to my insides. Like, I could not handle the level of insecurity at which whatever girl I was dating would have. Tell me you love me. Tell me you love me. And I'm just like, every day? I have to tell you every day? Why do I have to tell you every day that I love you? I'm here. Like, you don't see it? And until I saw this, I didn't realize that I am just as insecure, if not 1,000-fold more. And my respect for women went pew, and my disrespect for my own arrogance went plummeted fast. And in that sense, I realized God has to remind me every day that He loves me. I keep forgetting. I'm more insecure about something that is blatantly obvious. The fact that I am physically aware of my own existence says something made me. This is not an accident. And any complaint you could have about a woman to her man, you can have about a man to his God. You can. Just pay attention to that pattern and listen to the things women say when they complain about men, and try to fit that into the mold of a man complaining about God. You will hear it everywhere. Anyway, I'm going to wrap this up, but basically, seeking you will find, and the fear of the Lord is the beginning of knowledge. The knowledge. Sorry, it's like so hunky-dory or rinky-tink, this video, but I had to get it out there. I will continue writing the book, but it'll be better processed. But this is just to get it out and hopefully change people's lives in ways that they would not have seen my book. So, anyway, thank you guys. God bless you.